Howdy y'all, Rowan here. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back. Today I would like to do a VR to Sylvie over at Tarot Magpie. Recently they uploaded a video where they were talking about tarot decks that get straight to the point, speedy readers that allow them to just sit down, get a reading, get the information, move on with the day. And so I thought I would do a response because I wanted to talk about some of my speedy reader decks. I just loved the concept so much that I wanted to do it. And so I've gone ahead and made a hashtag that uses Sylvie's original title, so hashtag tarot to the point. If you would like to make one of these, go ahead and jump in, or if Sylvie wants to make an additional response or continue on making these videos as their collection grows, I'll leave that to them, but for now I just wanted to make a response, right? So let's go ahead and get started. They started their video with the Rider-Waite-Smith clones. So I'm going to be a copycat and do the same. So the first Rider-Waite-Smith clone that I want to talk about is the deck that I learned on. It is one of my speediest readers. I keep it in this very cat furry little black bag. I have trimmed this deck, so it does not, if you buy it, it does not look like my copy does. My copy is modified. But this is the Bianco Nero, if I can get it out of the bag. Give me just a moment. Alright, so this is the Bianco Nero. I struggle to get it out of the bag because my version has sharp corners on it and they get caught on the inside of the bag. But this deck is a Rider-Waite-Smith clone that is in black and white, and it has titles on all of the cards. The artwork is very sensual, but it's still, you know, it's still a RWS. I find it to be very intuitive, and also it hands you everything you need on a silver platter. It does not have excessive levels of, because it doesn't have like color, it doesn't have excessive levels of symbolism. It keeps to just the images themselves, and I really like that about this deck. I find it's a really punchy one, in part because of its black and white nature. It's excellent for questions where you just want to get, you know that you need to pick a side kind of thing. You need a decisive decision, and this deck is going to help you with that journey. So I have to shout out the Bianco Nero. This is the deck that I learned tarot on. I think I already said that. Or the main deck I learned tarot on. There were a couple that were really integral to my learning. But yeah, that one, I'm not even going to put it away in the bag because it's so difficult. I'm just going to set it off to the side and deal with that later. All right, so my next clone is going to be the Modern Witch Tarot from Liminal 11 by Lisa Sturl. This deck is annoying to shuffle, let me say that. The cards are huge. I'm thinking about trimming the borders off, even though I really like the borders on this particular deck. I'm thinking about trimming them off just to make it a little bit smaller and therefore easier to shuffle. But trimming the borders is not going to change the fact that the card stock is about a mile thick. So yeah, this deck is chunky. It's stiff. It's very plasticky because of its heavy lamination. So a lot of people don't keep this deck in their collection even if they like it, because it's just such a pain to work with. So I can't necessarily say that I recommend this deck, but I liked the artwork enough to ignore all the warnings and to just get it. And so I still work with it. I have found ways to break it in and to shuffle it, but I still get it. If you've got small hands, this is not going to be the deck for you. If you've got big hands and you like a good modern clone of a Rider-Waite-Smith, I do recommend this one. I think it's really cute, but you probably didn't need me to tell you that. It had its heyday, you know, this is a popular deck. So the Seven of Swords is so cute. Love this quad. Four of Wands. I don't know why I'm reading off the titles of them as I flip. You are probably literate. Statistically speaking, you're probably literate. Actually, I don't know that. I don't know if that statistic is accurate. That may just be my American ass talking. But this deck is very straightforward. It'll give you the bad answer, but it gives it to you in a tone of voice that makes you go, oh, okay, that's not so bad, I guess, which is really nice. It's young, so it kind of brings this youthful perspective and this not necessarily immature, but definitely vivacious energy. So I do like this deck when I am asking a question about something and I know that the answer is going to hurt my feelings. This is a deck that I go for because it's going to soften the blow. And it's going to give me the answer pretty quickly so that I don't have to dwell on it. It's going to write it all out for me in a way that's really straightforward, really digestible. It's easy to work with in that way, not in the physical, tactile way, of course, but in the reading way. So I thoroughly enjoy the Modern Witch Tarot by Lisa Sterle. Alrighty, let me put this one away. I don't like the box. I'll say that. The box is annoying as hell. I wish it were in... I actually might make a bag for it just so that I can carry it around with some amount of ease. But let me get this set aside. The next deck that I want to talk about is the Fountain Tarot. This is definitely a Rider-Waite-Smith clone. This one has gilded edges. It's a really good shuffler. And it's... Honestly, I said this is a Rider-Waite-Smith clone, but it's not nearly as much of a clone as either of the last two that we looked at, but it still gives me that clone energy while bringing unique concepts to the table. So I guess this is technically a Scenic deck without being a clone. This is a Rider-Waite-Smith Stormtrooper, to use a phrase coined by the Three Girls One Deck girls, I think. Peekaboo Rose, Sunset Bow Tarot, and Heather, I think. If I'm wrong, please correct me down in the comments below so that I can give credit where credit is due. But yeah, this is definitely a Stormtrooper deck. It pulls in a lot of the same imagery that the Rider-Waite-Smith has, but the cards that it veers from are mostly really easy to read. I do admit I struggle a bit with some of the courts, not all of them. I find the Pentacle courts to be really easy to understand, but I do struggle with some of the others. But I always struggle with court cards, so that one's not surprising. This deck is just, I mean, I'm going to say the same thing I say about all the decks in this video. This deck is easy to read with. It's soothing, right? So where my last deck was empathetic, this deck is a calm voice. It's an ASMR video. It's a sterile room with a comfortable temperature and swishy clothes that make nice sounds when you move. It is a safe space. It is, you know, honestly, this deck reminds me of the Rothko Chapel in Houston, Texas. If you ever go to Houston, you have to go visit the Rothko Chapel. It is an amazing piece of art made by, you know, Rothko. Actually, he wasn't the one who made it. He just did the art for it. I don't know who commissioned the Rothko Chapel. But yeah, if you like this deck, if you like the energy that this deck carries, you should visit the Rothko Chapel, because while it does not have art like this, it does have an energy like this. I'm trying to tilt it to the light because I realize that my lighting keeps changing as the sun weaves in and out of the clouds behind my window. But yeah, that's the Fountain Tarot. This deck is one of my favorites, but I don't reach for it very often because it does have that almost sterile feel to it. So I like to reserve it for speaking to my highest self or situations where I need almost source energy to tell me, like where I feel like I'm talking to a star. That's what I pull this deck out for. So let's get into some of the other Scenics. The next deck I want to talk about is one that I use for shadow work, dream work, and for getting quick answers in those things, right? Like, I have a deck that I can use for shadow work and dream work that I sit with and I like percolate with, I gestate, I digest that bad boy. It peristalsis moves through my intestines, right? But this one, This one is one where I can go, what was my dream about? And it's going to tell me, and then I can go, okay, thanks, and then put it away and go on about my day. And that is the Somnia Tarot. I have trimmed this copy, so the edges are a little bit uneven because this bad boy is also thick, and the cardstock is very sturdy, and my relatively inexpensive chopper did not do the best of jobs, right? So it's not a problem. It still shuffles well. I just can't riffle it particularly well. I have to overhand it, which is fine. This deck makes a lot of people uncomfortable. I don't have that experience with it. I don't experience claustrophobia easily at all. I think I've only had it once in my life, and I've been scuba diving, or snorkeling, not scuba diving. Scuba diving might make me claustrophobic, but snorkeling did not. But I love this deck. I don't use it often enough, quite frankly. I want to get the guidebook for it, like the separate purchasable guidebook, but I haven't committed to that yet because I think I might also get the illustrated copy of the deck, and I've heard that that one comes with the guidebook, so I don't want to buy it separately, only to realize that I get it for free with another $60 deck. Anyways, I find that this one just really reflects back at me the subconscious in a way that, so where the Fountain Tarot was the super conscious, this one is the subconscious, right? This one just gives me what's underneath, what's brewing under the surface, with insane amounts of clarity, and I find that it does give me many shadowy aspects of the cards in a very straightforward way, and I like that about this deck. So that's the Somnia Tarot. I guess this one could have been included as a Rider-Waite-Smith clone if I included the Fountain Tarot as a clone, but we've already established that the Fountain Tarot is really a scenic deck that is inspired by. This is another Stormtrooper, let me put it that way. And I will probably tell you the other deck that I use for dream work and shadow work that is harder to read when Sylvie makes their next video, which is going to be about decks that they sit with when they read, decks that they like chew on. We'll get into, I'll probably do a VR to that one as well, is what I'm getting at. So let's talk about the Lilifer Tarot. This one is another Scenic deck, and well, this one's kind of like a hybrid between Scenic and Pips because it's minimalist in its presentation, and I find it very easy to read. The cards aren't literal, they give vibes rather than, I mean, some of them are pretty direct. Let me not act otherwise. But like, hold on, let me find a specific card. It changed the way I read this card. Hold on, this one. The Knight of Cups. This card in the deck is one of my favorite Knight of Cups, and one of my favorite cards. This one, so Knights are all about movement, and the Knight of Cups to me has always been a card about like romantic feelings and the sensuality and the capital R romanticism of knights, and like that chivalry aspect of who they are. But this card takes it a step further and says that the Knight of Cups is somebody whose movements are guided by the emotional waters and the intuitive waters of their soul. And so I really enjoyed this particular presentation of the Knight of Cups because it did broaden my understanding of what that archetype could mean and how to interpret it and apply it. This deck is colorful, but it's got a lot of white space. It's textured, but it's pretty smooth. It's fiery, but it's pretty cool. I really enjoy this deck. It's got our astrological associations on every card, so you can take it that step further if you want. Or you can, honestly, so some people might get overwhelmed with having the astrological associations on each card, but I like it because it lets me see, like, I can look at this, and if I don't get any hits off of Two of Wands, I can just see Aries and Sagittarius and go from there instead. So it's almost like it's got these quiet little keywords built into it in case you get lost. And I like that about it a lot. That's what makes it an easy reader for me, is because if the regular meaning of the card is not coming to me, is not being conveyed through the artwork, for whatever reason, none of these cards miss for me, I don't think. Maybe one or two, but I can't think of any that are like pure misses. So you know, it's not often that I look at it and have no idea what the fuck's happening. But if that were to come up, or like, let's say a card that just cannot easily be applied to my situation comes up, then I have these astrological reminders built in that make it so much easier for me to work with what I've got. And that's why the Lilifer is an easy read, in my opinion. If you don't have to think too hard to remember what you need to remember about the card if the keywords aren't doing, like the keywords you've made for yourself aren't doing it for you, right? The next two decks I want to mention are both pip decks. And so these are easy to read if you read numerologically or Marseille tradition. If you're a Rider-Waite-Smith girly or a Thoth fanboy, then you will probably, like, if those are your primary methods, systems of reading and understanding, then you may struggle with pips. And so, actually, if you're into Thoth, if you're a Thoth fanboy, if you're a Crowley Thelemite, let me just say Thelemite rather than being mean. If you're a Thelemite, then or if you're a Thoth reader, or if you primarily learned Thoth, you may have an easier time with pips than other readers. So let me walk back what I said before about Thoth. Let me just say, if you're a Rider-Waite-Smith girly, then pips may not be your speed, and as such, you can ignore this. But there is one that I'm not going to spend a lot of time on because Sylvie mentioned it in their video. That's the Fifth Spirit Tarot. Boink. This deck, everybody and their mother has talked about, well, I should say everybody and their gay friend has talked about how this deck is so easy to read. It is the pip deck if you are trying to introduce yourself to pip decks. The word Sylvie used for it was simple, but they acknowledged in the video that that wasn't the word that they wanted. Several other commenters threw out words that they would use for it, myself included. I like the word minimalist for this deck. I like the word direct for this deck. I believe another commenter mentioned the word direct, but it gets right to the point. It doesn't faff about with a bunch of unnecessary symbolism. It shows you just what you need to know for the meaning of the card. And if you want to really get into it, like, you could sit here and come up with ways to get into it. The minimal use of color could be something to pay attention to. The use of shadow could be something to pay attention to get deeper meaning. But mostly this deck just, oh man, that card's damaged. Mostly this deck just gives you what's on the surface and does not need you to go a whole lot deeper. Because like, the meanings that it gives, I'm not going to say, because it's not a shallow reader. I don't want to imply that. Once again, I'm struggling with the same problem that Sylvie had. I'm not trying to imply that this is in any way a lesser deck by its directness, because that is not the case. This is a deck that doesn't fuck around. Like, it really doesn't. It tells you what's up. Like, it gives you some of the astrological correspondences in the majors especially, but it's not going to waste your time, I guess. This deck is not going to waste your time with a bunch of associations that tell you more but aren't really relevant at the end of the day. This deck is going to give you what you need to know and send you on your way, and it's going to do it in a way that is creative and cozy, and that's probably, I keep pulling the deck further and further away from the camera. That's probably the number one thing, is that this deck is not only direct, but also cozy, comfortable, and empathetic, but that's not the word that I'm looking for. Understanding? Did I say that already? Maybe. But anyway, it's a deck that gets it. It gets what you're going through, but it also gets that sometimes you need to hear it straight, and it's going to give it to you that way. And it's going to do it in a way that's really easy to understand, so that it's a clear communicator. Let me put it that way. This is a deck that could ace a communications course, okay? And then finally, one of my favorite pip decks, although I wish it were easier to shuffle. There's a miniature version coming out soon that I am going to be, or a pocket version that I am going to be getting for myself, and I may pass this copy along. But that is the Tattoo Tarot Ink and Intuition. This deck is a little bit larger than standard tarot size, and the cardstock's pretty thick, but it's flexible as opposed to the Modern Witch Tarot, which is stiff at the same time that it is thick, making it dense. This one's not super dense. It's quite lightweight for its size. And it's tough to stretch my hands around. I've got what I would consider average to small hands, but I can stretch them around this deck. The bend is a little tricky, but the flop is clear, right? It's pretty floppy at the end of the day. And this deck is a little bit symbolic without being over the top. It's pips with feeling, right? We see that. Or we say that, I should say, all the time. And this deck, I've described it, I want to say I've described it as, another deck that Sylvie mentioned that I actually don't consider to be an easy reader for me personally. This is the Zeke's Arcana. I talk about this deck all the damn time. The Zeke's Arcana. This is a pips with Thoth, I think is how I've worded it before. I don't remember if I used that to describe this deck or this deck, but pips with intention, pips with not feeling, because like this deck does not have a whole lot of feeling in the pips, but it does have intention. I don't know how else to put it. But there is a little bit of symbolism hidden in most of these cards that makes it easier to understand the non-arcana ones, or the non-majors. I like the colors. I like the limited color palette, the cream background. It's the same thing that makes the Fifth Spirit feel so cozy. Makes this one feel not cozy, but worn in. Comfortable. I wouldn't describe this deck as cozy though. This deck is just, it's like soft leather. That's what this deck feels like. And I actually will be, don't worry. Let's just put a pin in that. This deck is like soft leather. Put a pin in that. Okay. And we'll get there in the future. Okay. And not in this video, but in a video in the future, we're going to discuss that a little bit deeper. But I thoroughly enjoy this deck, and it's one of my favorites. Very few cards in this deck are my favorite version of the card that they are, but nevertheless, I find this deck to be really easy to read with as far as pips are concerned. In part because of the minimal symbolism that it gives, but also, hold on a moment, but also because of the energy that it brings to the table. It's not trying to circumvent your question. It's not trying to ask you another question in return. It's not trying to sass you. It's just gonna fucking tell you. This is your biker friend who doesn't have time for your delusional bullshit because they would rather be at the bar right now. They would rather be working on their bike. They would rather be hanging out with their friends, drinking beer, talking about Harleys or whatever the fuck it is bikers talk about. So that's this deck, the Tattoo Tarot, Ink and Intuition, and that concludes my video. Those are all of my choices for the speedy readers in my collection. There are some that almost made it into this video, but did not quite. And like honorable mention speedy readers, and I can mention those, but I'm not going to talk about them. The Phantasma Tarot by Paulina Fay. This one can be a speedy reader, but it's also got a lot of detail that I mostly get lost in. So this one is an honorable mention because if it had a less muted color palette and were less busy, the same artwork, like if Paulina Fay had just like slightly shifted her style to a slightly more minimalistic and brighter perspective, this deck would be easy peasy lemon squeezy to read with. But as it is, it trips me up just because I have to decipher what I'm looking at before I go, oh yeah, that's what this is trying to tell me. But I love it anyway. The Rosebud Tarot. The reason I did not include this one is because while the name changes to the courts and the majors make it a little bit easier to read, this deck has certain artistic perspectives that throw me through a loop. There are certain cards in this deck that I look at and I just get the energy of a different card, or I get just a off the wall, like the interpretation of the artwork just does not match what I consider to be the meaning of the card. And I don't even necessarily think, I just think it's that I don't see the artist's vision all the time with this deck. I don't fully understand. And like some of the cards that I'm thinking of when I say that, the Five of Cups confuses me. I said I wasn't going to do this, but let me, oh, it's right there on top. Perfect. I was meant to. The Five of Cups in this deck confuses me. The Five of Earth confuses me even more. Well, I guess, yeah, Five of Water, that's not, no, I think it was the Five of Earth I was thinking of then, because that one, upon second thought, does make sense. The courts are super easy to understand. Like, this magician, I don't get. This sovereignty of Earth is really pretty, but I don't necessarily understand the energy it's trying to convey. This velocity of air makes no sense to me whatsoever. This Three of Fire is not quite right, I guess. This does not match my understanding of where in the journey we are. This Eight of Earth is great, though. Where is the... Oh, this Seven of Earth makes no sense to me whatsoever. Like, as a Seven of Earth. It's a great piece of artwork that works for the Pentacle suit, the Earth suit, but it does not work for what the meaning of the specific card is. This is a great Eight of Fire. Did I pass it up already? I hope not. Where's the man on the boat? Show me the boatman. Boatman. Where are you, boatman? There he is. The Five of Earth. This one does not give me Five of Pentacles at all. I don't get it. I don't know what it's trying to convey, other than that maybe fishermen are poor. But it's a watery card for an earthly suit. I don't get it. So that's another honorable mention. A lot of the cards in this deck are super easy to read with, but about 10% of them trip me, maybe 15% of them trip me the fuck up. And because of those, this one cannot be included. Like I said, this one here, the Zeke's Arcana, this one is not an easy reader, but it's also not a hard reader. Like it doesn't make me work for the reading, but it's also one that encourages me to sit with the art. Maybe that's because I'm biased. I like this deck so much that I want to sit with it. I like the artwork style so much that I feel obligated to sit with it when I use it. Maybe that's like actually what's going on there. But that one's an honorable mention. And then the this is the Zerner Farber, the Zerner Farber Tarot, not terror. This one has the same issue that the Rosebud has, where some of the cards are just not quite. And actually, this one's different than the Rosebud, because the Rosebud, the interpretations are not quite understandable in a way that aligns with what, like, they just give me a different interpretation altogether. These cards, some of them give me nothing. Yes, Queen, give me nothing. The Page of Swords gives me nothing but a color palette and the idea of messages. The Ace of Coins gives me nothing but greenery. The Ace, or the Two of Coins, also does not really give me the energy of change. Oh, no, I take that back. We've got a snake here representing change and transformation. I take that one back. Okay. I'm just a liar about that one. But like the Six of Hearts gives childhood, I guess. Innocence, but it doesn't really match my interpretation of the card super duper well. I can work with it, you know, but it's not... It trips me up. This Eight of Hearts especially trips me up. It's really pretty, but it gives me Five of Hearts energy rather than Eight of Hearts. Some of them are just so focused on the texture that we saw that one already. That, oh, this moon card is great though. Some of them are just so focused on the texture and the aesthetic that they miss the mark for an easy read. But this one's close. This is very close to being included. So I think I've held you up already. We're almost at 30 minutes. So let me go ahead and say goodbye. Thank you for hanging out with me. Please do your own VR. But first, please watch Sylvie's original video. It's a great one. I'm going to link it below in the description box, so be sure to check that out. It's going to be the first link you see. And the sun is so pretty. All right. I love you all. Mwah. Comment, like, comment, subscribe. Have a great day. Bye.